that will be interesting to see here in a few years.
All right, here we go, Paul.
Let's go to the BetUS caller line. Jeff in Mexico. Thanks for your call.
Hey, roll tide, everybody.
Roll Tide.
Go
I
ahead,
just
Jeff.
wanted to call. I do think that it's not fair, though, with the Big 12. The TV money you guys are talking, I think the Big 12 deserves more than $25 million a team. I mean, in real speaking, that's less than the SEC makes off just our 230 game.
Yep.
And appreciate the call, and especially from where you're calling from. You've been very loyal to us. We appreciate it, as
thank you,
many
Jeff.
people. But it's not what we might think. It may not be that our opinion is that they should get $30 million or $35 million. It's what the networks think. It's kind of like you go to buy a car. There's a certain price, right? Are you going to, whatever price of the car, there's a certain reason it's at a certain level, whatever the price they set it as. If a network doesn't think you're more valuable based on what they think, based on data and stats and audience or whatever, and that's why. And oh, by the way, if you have been left out before, like TCU was, and now they've played pretty well since they joined the Big 12. They've been on and off recently, but they have still won 7 of 9 against Texas, and they had the co-championship with Baylor in 2014. If you've been left out before, and if you're Baylor and you've been on the edge like 3 times, or if you're TCU or you've been Houston, don't wait until this happens again and go, well, what about us? That means an extra 500 to 1,000 people fill the stadium or go to the games or buy tickets. Don't have a game that's in Dallas when you live 80 miles away and there's 2,400 tickets available and you only buy 600 for the excuses I can't understand, or vice versa. If you're Houston, go out and do some sort of campaign and see if you can get a few more butts in your seat. Don't go back and relax because now you're a part of the Big 12 or other schools as well. Now you got to try even harder. One of the things that Bob Bowlesby demanded when he discussed it with whoever was interested in joining the Big 12, your donors need to come up big again and again and again to offset some of what they might lose with the TV money.
Yeah, Jeff, appreciate you being a part of the show and enjoy Mexico. Roll Tide. Yeah, it'd be nice if it was bigger, but I think at this time, beggars can't be choosers. I mean, that's basically what it is. You are what you are, and you know what? Go out there and change the game, evolve as a conference, and create some new ideas, create some excitement. And, maybe years and years down the line, you can renegotiate that thing. But, given where we were a few weeks ago, coming down to splitting hairs on how much money they should or shouldn't get, I think they got to all be just very thankful that they even are getting close to what they might be getting based on what we've been talking about. Would have been nicer to be higher. You'd always want more, but that's reality is this was a conference that was basically taking its last breath 4 weeks ago.
On life support.
And now they've got a fresh oxygen tank, and they got to be very careful with that.
Here's a perfect segue into this text from Ron Tamlin. This whole thing once again points out that things are rarely as dark as you fear, and they're going to be. I told my boys Baylor would be okay in the scary days after Texas and Oklahoma left, and I think, and he's maybe right. I think it won't be easy or rosy for UT and Oklahoma as they are currently celebrating. We will see, and I think both of them are going to be just fine. But the bottom line is you're right. I got to tell you, it wasn't whether or not I was. When we cover a team like we do, whether it's Baylor or if it's Kansas State or it's Texas Tech or whoever it is, or even if it's Texas and Oklahoma, you really do want them to be a part of the big boys. You want them to win. You want them to do well. You still have to be able to report stories that aren't always very good, or sometimes you kind of have to get on edge with it, or you have to just say that they suck. But no, this is nothing that I lost sleep over. But I bet if you're Mac Rhodes or your others, you probably did, because your future of what you do for a living is affected by whatever your future might be in college athletics.
Yeah, I mean, from a radio host standpoint and writer and all that I do, I had the initial thought of like, this could be bad. But that was just an initial kind of reaction, and that was to the news of Texas and Oklahoma leaving. I mean, that was a massive deal that none of us saw coming, and so I think everybody was left. It's kind of like you get hit with a cheap shot and you're just kind of reeling and getting your bearings about you. But I think the Big 12 did a good job of getting knocked on their feet, kind of letting the birds stop flying around their head for a second, got their heads cleared, and were able to, instead of sulking, get up, dust themselves off, and get to work. And that's why they're adding 4 new teams tomorrow, is because they didn't sit around and go, oh, woe is me, somebody please come save
wait
us.
for them to make their final decisions.
It's all over, and that's what some people do in life, and then they wonder why it doesn't get any better or whatever. The Big 12, could have sat back and just let itself die, but to their credit, they were proactive and showed something for the first time in quite some time. They actually spoke, but then backed it up with actions, which was kind of nice to see. And that's why we're here now. And, I'd worried for a second, like I said, but I did have a feeling, especially after hearing Mac Rhodes, of I just can't imagine a situation where no matter how powerful Texas and Oklahoma are and all these other alliances and everything that are going on, it just would have been, and I know this is so silly, but it just would have been wrong to basically wipe out an entire conference of power teams because 2 teams shifted. You know what I mean? And the opportunities that would have ruined.
But
and just
the Big East at one point was
and then we've seen that, and we saw what it did to a lot of those programs, and we saw a lot of them are never going to be where they were before that happened. And so just the idea of that occurring again, but happening in the state, I'm just glad we were able to avoid that. At least it appears.
I want to say one sentence, and I know you have something to add to it. And this right here was not about politics.
No.
This was people getting their hands dirty and going out and fighting for their lives to keep a conference alive, whether they still have to be signed, sealed, and delivered. But this was about getting down dirty with your neighbor who sometimes you hate and finding a way to make this survive. And at least it appears as if they've done that. If not, I'm not saying thrive, that remains to be seen, but survive and have a chance to be able to play at a level in which you have to have the commitment athletically, financially, and you have to have it because you're a Power 5 autonomy and also money that goes with it.
To put a bow on it historically, the last time this happened when A&M left and Missouri left, the whole thing was let's stop them from doing what they want to do. This time was, no, F them. They're gone. Mm-hmm. Let's go move forward, which should have been the attitude the last time, and maybe we're not at this time. When A&M and Missouri left, and by extension, Nebraska and Colorado, who left the year before, instead of being proactive when those things happened, the Big 12 tried to change universities' minds that were already made up. And
Ken Starr sent a letter, and we understand a lot of that. That was, just to kind of, I think what he did that for was one, yes, for his own university at the time, but also just to slow it down for a few days. That just to kind of take a deep breath.
Well, and to that point, if Bowlesby doesn't say what he says about ESPN, where are we right now?
We may be talking about either the AAC with teams added and or the Mountain West or God knows where.
I mean, if he doesn't say what he says, Baylor's maybe in the AAC right now.
But you got to give him credit for a guy that was blindsided, knocked on his ass, that he found a way, and maybe the smoking gun found its way to him somehow. It's part of how history is made. Certain things, right, that happen. Here's from a Cincinnati fan on the chat room that we got to take a break as well. Dusty Wright, greetings from Cincinnati. Really glad I found you guys. Great show. Thank you. Looking forward to tuning in from here on out. Go Bears.